Welcome here. Thanks a lot for coming. Why don't you touch on just most recent developments?
Sure.
You're right in the midst of a couple of things right now.
Right.
Sounds like you got 4 or 5 or maybe 45 balls you're juggling in terms of the alliances you're trying to create. Give us the most recent update.
Yeah, first of all, thank you so much for having me here, because and we always use the term critical. You know, it's critical time.
Yeah.
It's probably overused, but I can tell you for sure that right now we need action, and I'll tell you why. So we started looking at our position in the economy years ago, you know, and we've really started focusing on quality of place, so let's improve things. So we've done the Marquette plan and shoreline redevelopment a lot of people enjoy. We finally got the airport runway you know, extended, and the CN moved over out of the way of the Gary Airport, so that's going in the right direction. So those are kind of housekeeping items, you know, those are pieces that are significant. So Lakeshore and international aviation is a part of the Chicago marketplace. But what we're looking at now is, okay, so we sort of built the lamp, but we have to plug it into the wall. And we're real lucky because the wall we're plugging into is the 3rd largest economy in the United States, 9th largest in the world, in Chicago, Illinois. And why it's critical right now that we're talking about things like extending rail and transportation-oriented development and improvements on the existing line is, you know, we just did a look at a study that just came out that showed that in 2013, there were 677 economic development deals done in our market in the Chicago marketplace, which includes Lake and Porter County. We got 16 of the 677. So, you know, we talk about lower taxes, which is important. That's a good policy. You know, quality of life and other things. We have some good schools here and a lot of things going for us, but it's not more powerful than connectivity. So of all of the other deals that were done in the 677, they got the corporate headquarters, we got industry. They got cluster around communities like Naperville and other places that are vibrant right now, and it was primarily because they have ports to Chicago in transportation-oriented development. They have commuter trains. So you think about, like, you know, your kid goes to Purdue and they get this great degree, and they want to be in your home area, and they look at a map, and you can think of it as a spider web. You look at the rail lines. We're going to catch a lot less because we only have one line that runs, and it really doesn't run in the same fashion that the commuter lines do going in and out of Chicago. What's happening right now is that we have some bills pending in the House, in the Indiana General Assembly. We have a hearing coming up on February 4th to support $9.4 million a year going to renew the RDA with the sole purpose of supporting expansion of Chicago rail to Munster and transportation-oriented development, which is the total redoing of the station houses in Gary, Hammond, East Chicago, and Portage. So really making us competitive with our true competitors in the west and north suburbs around the Chicago marketplace, and give us a chance to sort of turn the trend of not getting as many deals or as good a deals as happen in those places.
How transformative is that? Not just the extension into Munster. You know, you improve the stations across the line. How transformative is connecting to that Chicago marketplace versus just, you know, we have nice train stations and we access a couple more communities. Yeah. How transformative can that be? What's the difference between a Naperville or an Oswego or a Downers Grove on a Burlington Northern West line that I'm real familiar with from having lived out there for years? What's the difference between accessing the train via Hammond or Portage or Michigan City now?
Well, you know, I can put it to you in a couple different ways, and I try to find examples that are real. You know, we're pragmatists here, and I'm not selling pie in the sky stuff. It's like, you know, if it's not going to produce results, we're not doing it. We know it works because we've seen it work in the west and north suburbs. So a couple of examples, and then let's look at Northwest Indiana too. So backing up, we've gotten companies to move across the border, and that's important, and I'm glad. You know, we need those jobs, and we've worked with the governor's office, and there's been, you know, 1,000 jobs created the last couple of years with relocations and expansions in the area that we've directly worked on. But I will tell you this, so I go down I-65 to Indy all the time, and I see a big Subaru plant, you know, around the Lebanon area, or you might see something like that around Lafayette. Love to have, you know, 1,500 jobs from Toyota. We've talked about that, you know, when Governor Daniels was in. I will tell you, like, for a small community in central Indiana, that is transformative. Now, in Northwest Indiana, we would get those 1,500 jobs, we'd have a lot of headlines and a lot of political fare would be generated over it, and we'd have a, ribbon cuttings and the things that we do, and I would tell you 15 years from now, we wouldn't look one bit different than we look today. Wouldn't put a dent in it. Now, while we've been chasing deals like that for the last 40 years, our population in Lake County has decreased by almost 10% since 1970. In the same time, you go to the western suburbs, it looks like a completely different place than here, and in many cases, we're a lot closer to the loop than they are. Another thing I point to is the last time we had transformational development like they've gotten in the suburbs was in the early 60s when Bethlehem Steel came and Portage sprung up out of nowhere. That's the last thing I can put my finger on where I said there was a deal done economic development-wise that completely changed the way that we view ourselves in Northwest Indiana. That was the last transformative deal. So that's how important the train is to me, as we look at economics, and we know it works because we've seen it work across the border. Last thing we had was in the 60s. We've been declining ever since. So why in the world would we not take advantage of what is there for us to access, the model that already works? We have communities on board already. We have a bill pending. We have an RDA. We're knocking on the door of it. We've got a Chicago Dash running out of Valpo that's growing all the time. It is the right time for us to take our place in the Chicago marketplace. If we don't do it, it's because we fail to see the vision. The money is there to do it. It's because we lack courage to make the hard decisions. It's because we don't want to do the heavy lifting. And we're going to be sitting here 25 years from now, again, having the same conversation with somebody else about what is it that we can do to, grab onto the future, to help our kids, to bring our kids back. Why are my kids moving to Raleigh, North Carolina? Why are they moving to Naperville? Why are they moving to Milwaukee? Why are they moving to Kenosha? Why are they moving to Los Angeles? Why aren't they moving here? We're as close as anybody to Chicago, and the reason we're not tapping into it is we have not been willing to make the investment.
You got a number of people that you'd like to be hearing the message of reinvesting in what we're doing on the rail side, and simultaneously, obviously, re-upping and reinvesting in what the RDA's done. When you think of the Indy audience, what do you want those guys to know?
Yeah, what we're really trying to get Indianapolis to see is that we are the gateway to Chicago. We can produce more revenue for Indianapolis. We can lead the state. We can repopulate. We can be as significant as the suburbs are in Chicago, but on the Indianapolis side. There's a lot of detractors about Northwest Indiana. People talk about that. They used to joke.
Usually most of them in Northwest Indiana.
Yeah, you're right. A lot of it's self-imposed. There's some of that from Indianapolis, and I remember a time, and it's still the case. These things take time. People used to laugh about New Jersey. A lot of money in New Jersey now. A lot of trains running from New York City to New Jersey. Over time, those images diminish. Now it's, if you land at Newark or JFK, you're landing in New York. That should be the Gary Airport. You're landing in Chicago through Gary. At some point, you forget you're at Gary. You live in St. John or Valparaiso. I live in the Chicago area. One of the best communities in Chicago. Best schools, best housing options, low crime, low taxes. This is the place to be in Chicago. Yeah. Happens to be in Indiana. And to get Indianapolis to really take notice of that potential is a bit of a challenge. Indianapolis's model is about interstate trucking and tourism and things like that, and that's a great model. But this is a true bi-state concept, and it's a lot more analogous to areas like New Jersey and New York City than it is Indianapolis in the Midwest kind of logistics, tourism model that they have.
What do you want Northwest Indiana and local people to know? And then also, what do you want them to do? What do you want them to be aware of? And then how do you want them to act?
Well, what I would like people to know right now is this thing we've talked about for an awful long time, and that's okay. These are processes. We've heard that, it's critical. And I'm telling you right now, it is critical, and I will tell you why. We have 12 to 15 communities in Lake County already signed up to help fund the train. The RDA has brought money to the table. RDA renewal is up for discussion. So our battle is in Indianapolis right now as we speak. We have a hearing coming up on February 4th in the House, as I said. Those bills are going to go over to the Senate, and it's going to be looked at by the finance people there. And our message to them is that, we're not asking for a handout. We're giving you a business deal that's going to make big money for you, repopulate the area. It's going to be change the entire direction of not only Northwest Indiana, but have a statewide impact. We need people calling their representatives, their senators especially right now, to say this is important to me. I want to be in a vibrant area. I want my property values to go up. I want to lead the state. I don't want to be seen as a decaying industrial area anymore. I want to take what we already know we have and make it real. And it's the next few weeks that are going to count for this. I think if we can't get it done in this General Assembly, it's going to set us back decades. It's all about will right now. Again, the money exists there. It's about allocating it for the right purposes. The votes are there. The leadership is in place. It's just going to take courage, and it's going to take an overt exercise of that leadership, and it's going to take the backing of the media and the people of Northwest Indiana to push it across the line. Some of the pressure points we have, and we always have this, is why would we invest in you, Northwest Indiana, when Fort Wayne has a need, or Evansville has a need, or and they do have needs, and there's a thing called regional cities that the governor's looking at to help repopulate Indiana, and I'm really glad and grateful for the vision that he's bringing to the table. But on the same note, I would say we're ahead of the game as far as cleaning up our act, cleaning up our properties, getting ready for this thing, and this opportunity that we have is unrivaled not only in Indiana but in the Midwest. Show me 2 other counties anywhere in the Midwest that haven't already developed around Illinois, that have access to Chicago that we have just by virtue of our geography. They don't exist. So why are we different than Fort Wayne? We can make more money. We can produce for the state of Indiana. We can and will be and should be the gateway to Chicago for Indiana.
Last thing I touch on is in your role, how do you, because I think you're sort of the senior statesman of young leaders. You're not necessarily the young leader anymore, but you're sort of the younger generation of leaders. And we've had, Eddie Melton in here recently. We've had Norma Serrano. We've got other folks that have been involved in the TEDx event that went on last year. There's a lot of young leadership that is really dynamic, that's trying to make a significant impact. But you got to influence a lot of very existing power structures. Mm-hmm. What advice do you have to give to those people?
Yeah, well, I appreciate your comment, and I'm humbled by it, first of all, especially the young part.
I said you're not exactly the young part.
I was combing my hair this morning, wishing I had a lot more of it, but yeah, it's an interesting thing. I know this sounds kind of cheesy or theoretical in a way, but I think it's true. Sincerity matters. So find something you believe in if you're going to put your heart into it. Let's not just go sell to be salespeople. If you have an opportunity, it's a privilege that somebody's going to trust you to go out and try to push an initiative that could change the future. So find the one that you're passionate about and just drive it like crazy. Don't look back, and don't find an obstacle you can't get around. Respect everybody's position. So if we're younger leaders, we don't see senior leaders as adversaries. In fact, these personality types, I try to find, there's a lot of great people in this, okay? There's difficult people, and there's difficult issues. There's talented people and sincere people in it, and there's older and younger people. And they all bring something to the table. So for instance, there are people in the State House that I work with that have been in the legislature for a long time that have access to rooms that I can't get in. But because we have developed a relationship, and because I can respect the wisdom that they bring to the table, together, we're able to get some stuff done. So I think, you look at everybody, you're kind of building a wall, and everybody's a different shaped stone, but they all have to be there, and you're just sort of trying to fit it together, But at the end of the day, can we all agree that we need to build this thing? And that's been the other part, is to try to elevate the vision to a level where everybody says, we're not going to fight about the vision anymore. We may have some skirmishes about how we get to the objective, but the objective's already agreed on. And in this case with the train, and just the impact that it would have, I feel like we've turned the corner where people are saying more collectively, yeah, it is the time to do this. This is the tool that we have to execute on right now. And so how we get there, when we get there, how we pay for it, these are what the things that we're debating, but we're no longer debating whether or not we need to step forward. This is not just about a train. This is about opening up a pipeline to solve, the other issues that we want to eventually get to. And sure, easier to solve the other issues when people have jobs that pay 40% more than they pay here. They have access, they have people building homes, they have people knocking down things and putting up new structures. All of that stuff makes it a lot easier to change direction than trying to dig out, with a spoon instead of a shovel.